Hello and welcome back to Real English with Real Teachers. It's been a while for me since I made a video here on YouTube, partly because I've been dedicating a lot of my time to my new podcast, the British English Podcast. If you haven't heard it, I highly recommend it, and there's a lot of content on the website, thebritishenglishpodcast.com, for language learners like yourself. I also broke my thumb, so it's been pretty hard to record any content. I don't dare go outside into the real world and capture some footage because everything I seem to touch at the moment ends up breaking. So that's part of the reason why I've been away. But we're here today, and I've got a guest on the show today called Marta, and she is a professional in the cultural adaptations process. So anyone who is thinking about moving to a new country or has done recently, or maybe even in the past, will be interested in hearing about this. She goes into the 4 stages of adapting to a new culture. I didn't even know that this was an industry before I found her blog when I was preparing for an episode on the podcast. And she's an active blogger and Instagrammer, but she's also in corporate and has a profession in this industry. But let's get into the conversation, shall we? And I think we need some beatboxing to start this off, don't we?
You're watching
Real English
with
Real Teachers.
Real Teachers.
Hello, Marta. How are you doing today?
Hi there. I'm all right. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, it's early morning for me and late in the evening for you because you're in the UK. You're in my home country, but I'm far away from you right now.
Yeah, very far away. Yeah, it's 9 p.m. here, so quite late for me.
Yeah. Where in the UK are you right now?
I am in London, North London to be more exact.
Ah, very nice. Okay. And how long have you been in North London?
So yeah, I've literally been in North London the whole time I've been here. It's going to be 6 years in July. Wait, the time flies. I can't even. So I came here for 3 years max. That's what I've been telling to everyone. So yeah, it's been 5.5 now.
Right. That's interesting because we came to Australia thinking 2 to 3 years max. I probably shouldn't tell my girlfriend that your plan was that as well.
Whoops.
I think she wants to go back soon.
Right. Yeah, I was quite convinced when I first came here. I was convinced that it's only for 2 years, but we liked it so much, and like there's so much to do, there's so many opportunities, and we just stayed. Never say
Amazing.
never, eh?
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you've been in London long enough to get to grips with more than just the language, which I'm very impressed with, but also the cultural adaptations. And that's what we're here to talk about, to help you guys listening to better understand the process of how it is to come to a new country and explore the difficulties and the enjoyments of a new culture. So, Marta, can you tell us a little bit more about your job and your blog that you do as well?
Sure. So, well, I've been in various HR roles in my professional career and like corporate career, you may say. But then I have set up a blog a little while, maybe not just under a year after I moved to London. It was first supposed to be like an outlet for my emotions and my thoughts and reflections and stuff, and it turned into something more because I was already sort of interested in the topic of cultural adaptation, effective cross-cultural working. I was working before already in Poland in this international intercultural environment, and me going abroad was supposed to be that bridge to understand it a bit more. Because I was like, if I do want to learn more and make it intercultural topics in my career in some way, shape or form, then I was like, well, I should probably live abroad as well to experience it firsthand. And so I did, purely for experience. No one forced me. I like to say that I'm an expat by choice, which is literally what I am. So I've known before that there is some form of process that people go through. And I knew from others that it can be difficult at times, but it didn't it didn't quite settle until I've actually been through the process. And so I just want to let people know and inspire them through my blog and through my work to know that there is such thing as cultural differences. As much as we like to think that, you know, the world is global and we can travel wherever, cultures are a thing. and they do influence us. They're not the only thing that we are and that influences our experience, but it is a thing that we should consider. And so that's really what I'm about, just to tell people and educate them that cultural differences are a thing, and that really you can tame them as well. You can learn how to effectively work with others who are different from yourself and who are from different backgrounds than yourself, because it's possible. It's just a process that you need to go through.
Yeah, okay. Was there a moment that you realised, oh God, this is very different being in the UK, like culturally speaking?
Very quickly, too quickly. So, well, the process, maybe I'll tell you just like about what the models say, and because there is research behind it, and I was like, well, this is great. I wish I'd known that before in more detail, because at least I would know what the heck is going on with me and, you know, in this whole process. Because what they describe as cultural adaptation curve is like a U-curve, if you imagine. So you first are in this honeymoon period where everything's great and you're enjoying the place and you're kind of like a tourist in this place, and everything's better than back home and you don't want to come back and everything's like great, right? Yes. And then the reality hits a bit. So then you go into a dip. That's where your U comes in.
For me, sorry to interrupt, when I went into my first German supermarket when I moved to Germany. That was the
what
reality.
happened in that supermarket?
I think the lady shortchanged us. And but just the whole process of going around, like obviously everything's in German, but everything's like in different places. The foods are very different, and you just can't rely on what you're used to at all. So everything was just like, oh my God, yeah, okay, we're in Germany now.
So it literally sometimes feels like you're back to being a child. You're like dependent on others telling you it's like you can't even do the simplest things like grocery shopping, right? And I had the same thing, because it's like different products, even the same brands that you know have different names sometimes. So even though you sort of recognize the logo and stuff, it is different. Like Walkers, for example, for the chips, no, crisps. What's it? Crisps. Chips is in Polish is chips as well. So
and American
crisps. Yeah. And okay. So crisps is what I mean. Walkers. That brand exists, but under a different name in Poland. And so there's hundreds of examples like this from the shop. So it was definitely one of those things for me as well. Another thing that put me into that shock was people asking, how are you? How are you? So I was like walking down the corridor at work, for example, and they're like, how are you? And I'm like, how are you? And then they're just gone. They don't even want to hear how I am. How rude. I was like, why do you even ask me how I am if you don't want to hear the answer? I was like, oh. And they say that British are polite, right? And in my head, it was like, how rude, you don't want to listen to my answer.
Nowadays, 6 years later, what do you say?
How are you? And that's it, and I walk away.
I'm trying to think, like, I would say morning, or
all that.
You all right? All right? How's it going? Yeah, maybe I'd say that as well.
But the response to how's it going, unless you actually are with someone and trying to strike up a conversation, like if you're just walking past someone and like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, how's it going? Hey, how are you? Yes. How are you? It's just kind of like you in passing. It's a substitute for hello, really, is how I've deciphered it.
Yes,
after a while. But the beginnings were tough, because I was like, they don't really want to listen to me. Like, what am I doing wrong? You know, it's all those thoughts. Like, why do they not want to hear how I am if they're asking? Like, what's wrong? So things like that.
That's a good one. Very good. Wow. So you've got a 4-step process, and I interrupted your curve. So you start up here in the honeymoon period, then shit hits the fan, and you go down here. So
as you said, like it's there's some triggers that you can notice, right? That put you into that shock mode. And it doesn't have to, I mean, it's not quite as linear, right? For me, it was like, it's amazing, I want to go home, like, you know, I want to cry. And then it's like, yeah, it's actually not that bad. It was really pretty much like that rather than a
That would be an exhausting day for your faith.
There were those days. Like, I mean, if there's anyone who's listening who is just going through this right now, that is normal. That's part of the thing that I say to people. Like, you can have days when you're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, I saw, you know, the Parliament and the London Eye, and I had a wonderful walk around the Thames and the city and whatnot. And then I come back home and I cry because my partner is away, because when we moved, we were apart for a bit before he joined me, and so yeah, like, I miss my family, all that kind of stuff. So there were those days where you kind of go up and down a little bit emotionally, and I think that was actually the hardest part for me as well, the emotions and like taming them because there's just so much going on in my head and in general. But yeah, so yeah, there's the shock. But then the good news is you can go out of the shock, and it's a process. So just bear in mind, if you're in that moment right now, it's just a phase and it will pass. And there are ways that you can make it feel a little bit better. But it's great that this is happening, because that means that you're growing and you're being challenged to see things in new perspectives, and you're challenged to get some more self-awareness about your own values and your own cultural backgrounds.